My 30th birthday party was supposed to be a celebration, but it felt more like a funeral for my life choices. Mom had insisted on hosting at their suburban house, inviting 30 relatives and family friends I barely knew. I stood in the kitchen watching her arrange appetizers while she explained my career failures to Mrs. Henderson from next door. "It's just heartbreaking," Mom said, her voice pitched to Carrie. 30 years old and still playing with computers in her bedroom like a teenager. Meanwhile, her younger brother has a real job with benefits. "That must be difficult for you," Mrs. Henderson replied, shooting me a pitying look. I checked my phone instead of responding. An email from my publicist. Time magazine wants to move up the interview to tomorrow. They're accelerating the Person of the Year announcement. "Can you make 9 a.m.? I confirmed and pocketed my phone as Dad's voice boomed across the living room. "Nicole, come tell everyone about your brother's promotion." I walked over reluctantly. My brother Derek stood surrounded by relatives, looking uncomfortable but pleased. At 27, he'd just been promoted to senior analyst at a mid-sized insurance company. "Tell them about the cubicle upgrade," Dad urged. "Window view." Derek smiled sheepishly. "It's not that exciting, Dad. Just moved to a cubicle near the window. Small raise too." "That's wonderful," Aunt Susan gushed. "A real job with a real company. Stability, benefits, career path. That's what success looks like. Unlike some people," my cousin Brad muttered loud enough for me to hear, "who waste their lives on fantasy careers." Dad clapped Derek's shoulder proudly. "This is what I've been trying to tell Nicole. Real jobs have offices, cubicles, structure. You show up at 9, leave at 5, get a paycheck. Simple, stable, respectable." "What Nicole does isn't respectable?" Derek asked, defensive. "Nicole plays with computers," Dad said bluntly. 8 years now, and what does she have to show for it? Tiny apartment, car from 2014, barely making ends meet as far as we can tell. "That's not exactly," I started. "Honey, we're not judging," Mom interrupted, returning with mini quiches. "We're worried. You're 30 now. When will you accept this tech thing isn't working and get a real job like Derek?" "I have a real job, Mom." "Do you?" "Real jobs come with steady paychecks, health insurance, retirement plans. You work from your bedroom on projects nobody understands. That's a hobby, not a career." Uncle Ron, Dad's older brother, joined in. "Nicole, I've been in corporate America 35 years. Started in the mailroom, worked up to regional manager. That's a real career trajectory. Where will you be in 5 years doing whatever it is you do?" "I run a tech company called." "A tech company," Brad laughed. "Nicole, you're a freelancer with a LinkedIn page. That's not a company. The important thing," Aunt Susan cut in, "is you're still young enough to correct course. Derek didn't get his analyst job until 25. You could get an MBA, start a real career by 32. It's not too late." "I don't need an MBA. You need to face reality," Dad finished. "We love you, but this fantasy that you're some tech entrepreneur has gone on long enough. Look at Derek. Look at real success." Derek looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Dad, maybe." "Derek's right to be proud," Mom said firmly. "Window cubicle, $68,000 salary, full benefits. That's achievement. Something concrete we can tell people about. But you, how do I explain what you do? I don't even understand it myself." "Because you've never asked," I said quietly. "We've asked plenty," Dad countered. "You give vague answers about digital infrastructure and AI platforms. Nobody knows what that means. If you can't explain your job simply, it's probably not real." Mrs. Henderson nodded. "My daughter went through something similar. 3 years trying to be an artist. Finally got a teaching job. Sometimes we accept our limitations." "I don't have limitations to accept," I said. "I run a successful company called Quantum Core." "There you go again," Uncle Ron sighed. "Tech jargon. Real companies have offices, employees, organizational charts. What do you have?" "A laptop and a dream." My phone buzzed insistently. A text from my COO, urgent. Tech 360 Awards announced nominees. "You're nominated for Innovator of the Year. Press going crazy. Need approval to release statement." I texted back approval. "Put that phone away," Mom scolded. "It's your birthday. Can't you disconnect from computer games for one evening?" "They're not games. You're avoiding real conversation about real issues," Dad said. We're intervening because we love you. You're 30 now. No more excuses. Time to grow up and get a real job. The room murmured agreement. 30 people convinced they knew best, all certain my life was a failure. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went pale. Guys? You should see this. Not now, Dad said. We're trying to help your sister. Dad, seriously. Derek held up his phone. Tech 360 Awards just announced nominees for Innovator of the Year. Nicole's on the list. The room quieted. That's nice, Mom said dismissively. Lots of little participation awards in tech. Sweet that Nicole got nominated. Mom, Tech 360 is the biggest technology industry event of the year. Like the Oscars for tech. Derek read from his phone, voice strengthening. Nicole Brennan, founder and CEO of Quantum Core, nominated for Innovator of the Year for groundbreaking work in quantum computing applications for AI infrastructure. Quantum what? Uncle Ron asked. Derek kept reading, eyes widening. Quantum Core, valued at $15.3 billion, has revolutionized data processing. Over 1,200 employees, offices in 7 countries, serves 87 of the Fortune 100. Complete silence. That can't be right, Dad said. 15 billion? You're reading it wrong. I'm not. Derek showed the screen. Other family members grabbed phones, typing frantically. Brad spoke first, voice shaken. Holy shit. Nicole's on Wired's cover from 3 months ago. The Quantum Leap. How Nicole Brennan is reshaping enterprise computing. Forbes profiled her, Mrs. Henderson said, scrolling. Last year. Self-made billionaires under 35. Says she's worth $10.4 billion. Billion. Mom whispered. Fortune ranked her 7th most powerful woman in tech, Aunt Susan read. Bloomberg called Quantum Core the most disruptive infrastructure company of the decade. Dad grabbed Derek's phone, hands shaking. Says you have 1,200 employees. Offices in San Francisco, New York, London, Tokyo, Singapore, Berlin, Toronto. Annual revenue $4.2 billion. Correct, I said quietly. But you work from your bedroom, Mom said desperately. Drive a 2014 Civic. Live in a tiny apartment. How can you be worth $10 billion? I work from my apartment because it's 10 minutes from Quantum Core headquarters. I drive a Civic because it's reliable. The apartment is small because I'm rarely there. I don't measure success by status symbols. Uncle Ron scrolled, growing paler. Hundreds of articles. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, MIT Technology Review. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. 2 years ago at Thanksgiving I mentioned Quantum Core closed a $2 billion funding round. You told me to stop making up numbers. Last Christmas I said we'd signed Apple as a client. You asked when I'd get serious about life. But $15 billion, Brad whispered. While I called you a freelancer you were running a billion-dollar company. The TV suddenly switched from football to breaking news. A news anchor filled the room. Breaking news in technology. Time magazine has just announced Nicole Brennan, founder and CEO of Quantum Core, as one of 3 finalists for Person of the Year. Every head turned. My professional photo appeared. Last year's Fortune cover shoot. Brennan, 30 years old today, the anchor continued, has been called the most influential figure in quantum computing. Her company has revolutionized enterprise data processing and AI infrastructure. With personal net worth exceeding $10 billion, Brennan represents a new generation of tech leaders reshaping global business. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood. Red wine spread across the floor. Nobody moved. Person of the Year? Dad's voice was hollow. That's presidents and world leaders. That's people who changed the world, Derek finished softly. Nicole, you're a finalist? Yes. I find out tomorrow if I won. Interview got moved up. I need to be in New York by 9 a.m. You didn't mention that, Mom said weakly. You didn't ask. You were explaining to Mrs. Henderson how I'm wasting my life. Aunt Susan had tears streaming. We called your work childish. Told you to get a real job. And you were building the most valuable quantum computing company in the world. Brad looked sick. I called you a freelancer with a LinkedIn page. While you were worth $10 billion. 10.4 according to Forbes, I corrected. Though it fluctuates. Uncle Ron sat heavily. 35 years in corporate and I lectured you about trajectories. You're worth more than everyone here combined. 100 times more. It's not about money. Then what? Dad demanded, voice breaking. Why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were struggling? Because you didn't want to know. Every time I shared good news, someone changed the subject or told me to be realistic. You decided I was failing and nothing I said mattered. So I stopped trying. But we're your family, Mom sobbed. We should have known. Should have believed. Yes. But you believed in Derek's cubicle and Brad's sales job and Uncle Ron's manager title. Those made sense. What I did was foreign and threatening, so you dismissed it. My phone rang. My publicist. I need to take this. Of course, Dad said quickly. Whatever you need. I stepped into the kitchen. Hi, Sarah. Nicole. Congratulations. Time confirmed, you won. Person of the year. We need you on the red eye tonight. Photo shoot tomorrow, announcement Wednesday. This is huge. I'll be there. Send flight details. Already did. Car in 2 hours. Nicole, this is incredible. 30 years old and person of the year. You just made history. I hung up and returned. Every eye was on me. That was my publicist. I need to leave soon for New York. The Time interview? Derek asked. The photo shoot. I won. Deafening silence. You won, Mom repeated. Person of the year. Our daughter is person of the year. Yes. Dad crossed the room. For a moment I thought he'd yell. Instead he hugged me. I'm sorry, he whispered. So sorry. We didn't see it. Didn't see you. No, you didn't. Can you forgive us? Mom asked through tears. I looked around. Uncle Ron, who lectured about mailrooms, Aunt Susan, who compared me to her artist daughter, Brad, who called my work fantasy, Mrs. Henderson, who pitied me. All certain I was failing. I don't know, I said honestly. 8 years telling me my work was childish. Comparing me to Derek's cubicle. Staging an intervention at my birthday. That hurt. Still hurts. We didn't understand, Derek said. Should have tried. That's on us. What do you need? Dad asked. How do we fix this? Respect what I built. Not because time validated it, but because it's mine. Stop measuring success by cubicles and cars. Understand different paths can be legitimate. We can do that, Mom said desperately. We can learn. Maybe. But not today. Today I pack and catch a flight for Time magazine. I'm person of the year at 30. I changed the world with my childish computer games. I grabbed my coat. The guests stood frozen, processing that the family disappointment was the most accomplished person they'd ever met. Happy birthday to me, I said softly and walked out. The Uber arrived in 7 minutes. As I climbed in, my phone exploded. Congratulations from colleagues, interview requests, messages from industry leaders. News spreading fast. By tomorrow my family would wake to find my face everywhere. Time's person of the year. The woman they'd pitied, recognized as one of the most influential people alive. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow would be chaos. Tonight, for the first time in 8 years, I felt free from their judgment. Real jobs have offices, Mom said. Mine had 7. Across 7 countries. Employing 1,200 people, changing how the world processed information. Their office politics needed a reboot indeed. And I was exactly the person to deliver it.